restriction.
Kroc insisted that operators stick to his ironclad rules. But Ray was a rule breaker himself. He continually clashed with Dick and Mac over changes he wanted to make in their original formula. But contractually, he couldn't change anything without their written approval. This became an increasing source of frustration for Ray during his 7-year relationship with the McDonald brothers.
There was a little friction began to build up because Ray thought we had too much control on him. See, Ray was a great idea man, and he'd have one probably every 15 minutes. But some of them were not gems. So they began to have a little friction.
In 1961, Kroc decided he wanted McDonald's all to himself. He asked Dick and Mac how much it would cost to buy them out. The brothers told him they wanted $1 million each, plus enough money to cover their taxes. A total of $2.7 million, cash.
He thought, here are these guys, they weren't doing anything to earn their cut, except they gave me the idea. And now they wanted all of this money, and they wanted it in cash. I think he almost thought it was like an extortion.
I learned some new cuss words, and I broke a few windows, and I shut the door and screamed and hollered, and I said, take it. And the lawyer and accountant said, you're crazy, and I said, that was established many years ago.
But the deal had one last stumbling block. Kroc thought the $2.7 million included the brothers' original San Bernardino restaurant. Dick and Mac said it did not. This disagreement capped off years of Ray's long, simmering resentment for the McDonald brothers. He confided to a longtime employee, "I'm not normally a vindictive man, but this time I'm gonna get those sons of bitches." And he would use their own name to do it. In December of 1961, Ray Kroc bought the rights to the McDonald brothers formula for $2.7 million. Without the rights to their own name, Dick and Mac were forced to take down the sign above their San Bernardino restaurant and rename it the Big M. Fueled by years of frustration and anger, Kroc opened a brand new McDonald's 1 block away and drove the Big M out of business.
Kroc could be very vindictive, and he was proud of it. He considered that kind of the mark of a good salesman, that you have to be that forceful and aggressive, vindictive person. So he didn't consider that a personal flaw at all.
With Dick and Mac out of the way, Kroc set out to put his own stamp on McDonald's menu. He fancied himself a visionary when it came to developing new products, but it was never his strongest suit.
I remember one time he tried to put in McDonald's a little pastry called a kolachki, which was very popular in Chicago. He thought, gee, I love kolachkis. The rest of the country must love kolachkis. So he tried to put those in McDonald's, and it failed.
But Kroc's most memorable flop was a sandwich developed after Cincinnati's Catholic population clamored for a meatless sandwich they could eat on Fridays. In response, he introduced the hula burger.
I said, well, we'll take a slice of pineapple, and incidentally, this is a great sandwich at home. Fix it up. You grill it in butter and put a slice of cheddar cheese on top, one on the bottom, and put it on toasted bun or bread. And they call it a hula burger. And they said, I like the hula, but where's the burger?
He thinks he has this great idea that he has his pulse on American Appetite. He doesn't. He has his pulse on the American Pocketbook, but he doesn't quite get the stomach down. So he learned very early on just to leave that to the franchisees.
Kroc's Cincinnati franchisees solved the meatless sandwich problem by developing the Filet-O-Fish. McDonald's now sells over 50 million pounds of fish per year. Jim Delegati in Pittsburgh developed the Big Mac, which went on to become McDonald's flagship sandwich. And Herb Peterson in Santa Barbara showed Ray a product that got McDonald's into the breakfast business:
It was all prepared for him, and we prepared some Eggs McMuffin for him, and he ate 2 of them. And he said, "This is great, we should do it tomorrow."
Thanks to the Egg McMuffin, breakfast now accounts for more than 20% of McDonald's U.S. sales. Ray didn't care who got the credit, as long as the idea helped McDonald's. This was especially true when it came to advertising. Even though Ray was a super salesman, he knew it was best to leave the job of public pitchman to someone else.
Kroc was many things. He was brazen, he was arrogant, he was very determined, very dedicated, but he wasn't endearing. He wasn't this nice, warm father figure, grandfather figure that would pull in the families.
McDonald's understood that when it came to feeding families, kids had the loudest voice. In 1963, franchisees in Washington, D.C. hired the man who had played Bozo on local TV to develop a clown character exclusively for McDonald's. At first, they called him Donald McDonald.
Willard Scott, who was then very thin, by the way, Willard Scott was the first then Donald McDonald. And he had a McDonald cup for a nose, and he had a 4-hole carry-out tray for a hat, and he was dressed as a clown character in McDonald colors.
Here I am, kid. Hey, isn't watching TV fun? Especially when you got delicious McDonald's hamburgers.
The clown, soon renamed Ronald, was an instant hit with kids in the Washington, D.C. area. 3 years later, after a makeover and a wardrobe change, Ronald McDonald made his debut as the chain's national spokesman.
After McDonald's makes that decision, they go full force on this. They pull in the big advertising guns, have a media blitz, reach 4.6 million kids within a month, getting Ronald's face on all the networks. Big time exposure.
Hey, that's me! Pretty good likeness, wouldn't you say? When you see my face, think of your kind of place. McDonald's!
Ray knew that McDonald's image was crucial to its success and spared no expense using television commercials to position his company just the way he wanted.
The ads of McDonald's were always kind of warm and fuzzy, and I think that was a very conscious way of getting people not to think of McDonald's as the great assembly line food processor that it is. You deserve a break today. Well, isn't that nice? Thank you very much.
You deserve a break today at McDonald's.
Thanks to the power of advertising, McDonald's became an American icon. And it made sure everyone knew its formula.
I know it. Okay. 2 all-beef patties.
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
Okay, 2 all-beef patties.
Special sauce, lettuce.
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, and cheese.
That doesn't rhyme.
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
By 1965, Kroc had opened close to 700 restaurants in 44 states. In April of that year, McDonald's became the first fast food company ever to go public. Stock was issued at $22.50 a share. Within weeks, it climbed to $49 a share, making Ray Kroc an instant multimillionaire.
There was a lot of excitement at the offices because, no one was that sophisticated about the stock market, including Ray. Everybody would kid him when the stock did well, when it would go up some points, and somebody said, "Ray, you made $1 million today." And he used to laugh about it because he couldn't really conceive of anything of that nature.
3 years later at a McDonald's convention, Kroc gave an after-dinner speech telling his guests he had achieved everything he ever wanted in life, except for one thing. For once, Kroc was not talking business. He was sending a message to the woman sitting next to him. The piano player from Minnesota, whose husband was now a McDonald's operator, Joan Smith. After dinner, Kroc invited a select few guests, including Joan, up to his hotel room.
I was there in the suite, and he brought in a grand piano so they could play the piano, and man, he was working. He wanted to get together. Oh, yes.
This time, Ray was triumphant. Within a year, he and Joan divorced their spouses, and on March 8, 1969, they were married. By the time Ray turned 70, he had everything he wanted in life. His business was more successful than he ever could have imagined. And he was happily married to Joan. But Ray couldn't sit still. Before long, America's king of the hamburger business set out to hit a home run in a whole new ballgame. By the early 1970s, McDonald's officially became the largest food supplier in the country, surpassing even the U.S. Army in the number of meals served. Ray Kroc's success earned him a dinner invitation to Richard Nixon's White House. The president greeted Kroc by asking, "What is it, 8 or 9 billion now?" Kroc replied, "Mr. President, it's 12 billion. Such phenomenal success put Kroc in company with the world's richest men. But Ray soon learned that so much money and notoriety could also lead to trouble. In 1972, Kroc donated over $250,000 to Nixon's re-election campaign. The contribution drew enormous criticism. New Jersey Senator Harrison Williams accused Kroc of trying to influence a minimum wage bill in legislation at the time.
It was a disastrous type of mistake to make such what turned out to be such a visible donation to that candidacy at that point in time.
Kroc had better luck with charity. In 1969, he started his own foundation for medical research and handed over the reins to his brother, Dr. Robert Kroc.
We chose 3 areas: diabetes, arthritis, and multiple sclerosis. The first 2 Ray had, and our sister Lorraine had been diagnosed with MS. And of course, I couldn't resist the opportunity to give someone else's money away for research.
Now in his 70s, Ray began to enjoy the spoils of his riches. He used his money to fulfill his lifelong dream of owning a baseball team. For years, he had tried to buy his favorite childhood team, the Chicago Cubs, but their owner, Bill Wrigley, wouldn't sell. Finally, in 1974, Ray bought the struggling San Diego Padres, who were about to be moved to Washington, D.C.
Buzzy Babese was then the president of the San Diego Padres, got a call from Kroc's attorney. And he said, "I have a man who wants to buy your ball club." And he said, "Well, how many in his group?" "Just one." He said, "How is he going to pay for it?" "Cash." And he's the guy that really was the savior of baseball in San Diego. And nobody knew who he was. We didn't know this was the man who created McDonald's. Here he comes in, little guy, kind of a feisty guy. And he said, "Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to win around here."
Kroc brought his trademark enthusiasm to the game of baseball. But at the Padres' 1974 home opener, he got a little too enthusiastic.
We were behind another 8-0 or something in the 3rd inning, and Ray marched down to the PA, and he got on the microphone and apologized to the fans. "This is the worst team I've ever seen in my life. I want to apologize to you people. I promise we're going to win one of these days, and I think these people are awful on the field, and it'll never happen again." And he went on and on.
He gets up there, PA in hand, and berates those players like he was berating a crew worker. And the players are dumbfounded. Management at the Padres is dumbfounded. Kroc's friends are rolling their eyes. It's like, "Oh, there goes Ray Kroc." And it was classic Kroc.
I have been schooled in serving the public And if they come into my ballpark, I don't own the ballpark, see my ball club, I want them to get value. And that's what I want them to get in McDonald's. And as long as I can give them value, I'm going to have them coming in. When I can't give them value, I'm going to have to berate somebody.
After the outburst, the fans loved him for it, for being just a normal person, but with $1 billion in his pocket.
Ray garnered more attention for his exploits with the Padres than he ever did with McDonald's. He tried desperately to turn the team around with little success. The Padres had only one winning season over the next 6 years. Kroc was frustrated and beginning to feel the effects of age. In his late 70s, Kroc scaled back his day-to-day involvement with the club, but still remained a favorite with the San Diego fans. On October 2nd, 1982, the Padres threw their owner a glorious 80th birthday party.
It was Ray's day. And at the beginning of the game, Ray drove around the entire stadium in an open convertible car, waving to everybody and loving every minute of it. It was really fantastic.
It was one of Ray's last shining moments. A year later, he suffered a series of debilitating strokes that would eventually confine him to the hospital. On January 14, 1984, Ray Kroc died of heart failure. He was 81. Ray left behind a fortune estimated at more than $500 million. 10 months later, McDonald's sold its 50 billionth burger. His widow, Joan, inherited the Padres and carried on the Kroc baseball tradition. During the 1984 season, the team wore Ray's initials on their sleeves, and they went on to win the National League pennant.
Joan Kroc, the owner of the San Diego Padres.
Joan celebrated with the team after the momentous victory.
It is the happiest moment of my life, and I dedicate this happy moment of my life to Ray. May he rest in peace and be forever and ever happy. We love him.
Today, McDonald's success continues with no end in sight. The numbers are staggering. McDonald's has opened over 25,000 units. 1 of every 8 Americans has worked for McDonald's. And according to a recent survey, the Golden Arches are now more recognizable around the world than the Christian cross. McDonald's has truly reached epic proportions. All of it accomplished through the vision of Ray Kroc.
He is a giant in the food industry, equaling anything that anybody did anywhere else. Henry Ford, you can talk about him, you talk about the Wright brothers, the airplane business. This guy dominates what he got into.
I don't think the McDonald brothers ever dreamt of anything like this. I think they had a very good concept, and you have to tip your hat to them for that. But I think it was Ray's vision that really made McDonald's go.
Here you take this kid from not a wealthy background, a son of an immigrant, very much through pluck and luck, creates this multi-million-dollar corporation that's known worldwide. So by the standards of American capitalism, he's about as successful as you get.